Good morning. Dateline New Haven, WNHH-FM, your home for community radio. My name is Paul Bass, and I invite you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make New Haven tick. Well, one of the big stories in town now, amid the COVID-19 pandemic, is the utter failure of the federal and state governments to get all these trillions of dollars meant to aid people affected by pandemic into the hands of an appreciable number of people in urban minority communities. In other words, are the dollars going to make it to New Haven and Hartford? We have two people on the show today who are working hard to try to make that happen for Black and Latino owned and women owned small businesses, groups that have nationally not been getting their piece of the pie. Say good morning to Kim Hawkins, who's the Vice President and COO of HEDCO, the Hartford Economic Development Corporation. Even though it's called Hartford, it works here as well. And they're trying to get $20,000 forgivable loans into the hands of high-risk borrowers in the minority business community. And say good morning to Howard K. Hill, not only the owner of the fabulously successful Howard K. Home Funeral Homes in New Haven and Bloomfield, if I have that right, I hope I do, Howard, but also he is a leading proponent of creating wealth and opportunity in the Black community and does a lot to foster that. Good morning, folks, and thanks for making time to be on the air with us today.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Okay, so can I just lay out the issue and one of the solutions you're pursuing? Kim or Howard, from your vantage point, am I right? Has there been an almost complete failure to send this emergency aid money for small businesses in the minority community into the minority communities, not just here, but nationwide? Are you seeing that from your perch?
Howard, you want to go first?
Sure. Paul, thank you for having us on, and thank you for highlighting these challenges that we're having in our community, our business community. If you understand the history, you'll know that these challenges they're not new. It's not because of the COVID-19 virus. These are systemic issues that have existed since the beginning of time, particularly for Black people here in America. Or as it relates to the COVID-19 response and the stimulus dollars, I wouldn't say that it's an utter failure. I wouldn't go that far. I think there are some minority businesses that have been able to take advantage of the stimulus dollars, but there are a vast majority. There's a vast majority of folks who have not been able to take advantage of the stimulus dollars. And I believe that it's due to the longstanding chronic issues that exist in the minority community, the business community as a whole. So I'll stop there and I'll let Kim weigh in on this. And I just saw that Senator McCrory may have just joined us.
Yes, we've been joined by Senator Douglas McCrory from Hartford, Bloomfield, and Windsor. He's a state senator who has worked with Howard K. Hill and with Kim Hawkins to try to get some of these emergency dollars into the hands of small businesses. Good morning, Senator McCrory, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for having me. I'm sorry I'm a little late, but I had to handle some home business.
All right, good deal with business. Kim Hawkins, so Howard talked about the history of impediments to getting resources to small businesses, Black and Latino-owned businesses. What are you seeing specifically in your role as someone who works day and night on economic development in urban communities? What is happening with the stimulus dollars? Is Howard right that it's not an utter failure, but that to a large extent the dollars aren't getting there?
I would agree with him. It's not an utter failure. There are some businesses who are able to take advantage of some of the programs. However, there are not enough dollars that are designated for the smaller communities to be able to take advantage of programs. And so when you look at proportionately the volume of dollars that are being allocated to small businesses versus the volume of dollars that's being allocated to minority and women small businesses, it's a vast difference. And so we need to have more dollars allocated to support those small businesses who are mom and pop stores, sole proprietors, who have the ability to employ one or two individuals and keep them going so that the impact of the community can remain viable and sustainable. And so it's difficult to get mainstream society to understand how important it is for those small businesses to be able to tap into dollars. The SBA
Well,
is
we've been watching on the ground here, Ms. Hawkins, minority and women-owned businesses that might have 5 or 10 or 15 employees.
Mhm.
Dollars are allocated, but they've been the last to be able to get them from a whole bunch of reasons, whether it's not having the same relationships with bankers who get through that crush, because remember how hard it was for SBA loans to get through, to not always
Right.
having the same paperwork immediately available or credit if they depend more than others on, let's say, government payments for work through set-asides and the government's holding back their check, then they don't have the credit reports needed. I don't know, Doug McCrory, have you noticed anything like that from your perch?
So absolutely. So I want to speak specifically to the coronavirus impact. So you make a great point. So if you notice, this past couple of days, the PPP program, the federal stimulus program that came out,
Payment Protection Plan.
Yeah, the Paycheck Protection Plan. Unfortunately, that program has been a disaster for quote unquote small businesses. What you noticed, and actually Wells Fargo is being sued, a class action lawsuit against them, that unfortunately small business consist of 500 employees or less. So therefore, what happened? All the money that came, all those billions of dollars that came down to Washington D.C., in order for you to have access to those dollars, you have to have a loan with a commercial bank. Unfortunately, many of the small businesses in our communities don't have loans with commercial banks, so they wouldn't have access to those dollars. And
I can just add one other thing. Even people who have the loans, most of the people with those commercial banks didn't get it because of the bureaucratic tie-ups. You need a staff person who can deal with all the glitches with computers. And there was an article yesterday about how a provision was written into the PPP plan that if you're a big chain with thousands of outlets, you can define each food outlet as a small separate business. So all the Subway places can count. And as Shake Shack got to give the money back. But, we're talking to Doug McCrory, State Senator, Kim Hawkins from HEDCO, and Howard Cahill about what we're going to do about this here on Dateline New Haven to try to get some money where it's needed. So you three collaborated, if I understand correctly, on a separate effort. PPP, we still got to make that work. We got to make these other loans work. What did you three come up with in creating a new pool of money?
Understanding that what happened at the federal level with the PPP money, and also understanding what happened at the state level with the bridge money, where the state put out $25 million originally, and then put up $50 million for small business. All those, that account was shut down after 2 days because of the fact that so many people were applying. 5,100 small businesses applied. So therefore, I knew and I realized the fact that unfortunately this communication don't get down to the grassroots level. And I knew that we had to create a program specifically designed for minority-owned business and women-owned businesses that have less than 20 employees. And these are the mom and pop stores that Kim was talking about that you see in your neighborhood that employ 2 or 3, 4 people. So we designated this pot of money specifically to serve this population. And again, because of the fact that so many minority-owned businesses do not have a positive relationship and have been turned down so often from the state of Connecticut, it has taken us some time to get this program up and running the way we want to. However, recently,
let's tell people what the program is. So first, the state said, here's some emergency quick money, $50 million for emergency money, and none of that. Did any of that get to the minority small businesses?
We don't know yet, but what the data, the data shows that right now, currently, about 1/3 of the applicants were women, and about 15% of the applicants were minority. Those numbers, those dollars, that's high.
For which pot of money?
For the $50 million that the state put out, the bridge loan. So
the applicants, did they get the money? Did those applicants get the 15%?
They in the process of going through it right now because they didn't have the capacity. So many applications came in such a short amount of time. They had to go out and get a third-party vendor to help them evaluate all the loans. But those dollars should be coming out by the end of the month. But again, I don't think the community that we're talking about, we're trying to serve, they're not going to access those dollars because after 48 hours, the program was shut down. And unfortunately, a lot of our small businesses, with the nuances they have, they were not familiar with the program or did not know much about the program, and therefore they're probably going to be shut out that program also. And that's why this program is so unique and so important for our community.
So let's tell people what this program is, maybe Howard or Kim. So Doug McCrory worked with Kim, I believe, at the State Department of Economic Development in Howard, and you created a separate pool of money, forgivable loans that you don't have to go through a bank for. And I believe it's $20,000. Tell me about what is the program? How's it working?
So the program is a response to the COVID-19. It is a program for businesses that employ 20 people or less to be able to apply for funding to support their ongoing needs with regards to keeping their business open. We know that there are some businesses that are on the verge of closing, and we want to be able to support them to allow them to stay open during this pandemic. It is for women and minority-owned businesses. A woman has to own 51% of the business to be able to qualify. You have to have been in business, conducting business for at least 6 months. We are, it's a 0% interest rate. It is what we've deemed a line of credit for 1 year. At the end of that year, you have to produce invoices that show that you actually applied those dollars that you were granted to the particular need that you have, be it rent, payroll, utilities, whatever we've identified. And at the end of that year, the grant will be forgiven as long as you produce those documents.
So this is $20,000 line of credit. How much money do you have?
Up to $20,000. Up to $20,000.
How many applications have you got, and how many spots are there?
We've received several applications. We've received almost 400 or 500 applications. However, we're assessing them. So until we exactly know what the value and the dollar amount is, I can't tell you where we are in that process as yet.
Do you still want people to apply?
We are allowing the program to stay open until April 30th.
And how do people find out? What's the program called, and how do they find it?
So the program is called the COVID-19 Business Response Line of Credit. They can go to the HEDCO website, which is hedcoinc.com. When they go there, there's a box that's there that identifies the COVID-19 Response Line of Credit. They should click on that box, and then all of the information will flow from there.
Great. You're listening to Dateline New Haven. We're talking about a special effort to pump forgivable lines of credit up to $20,000 to small minority women-owned businesses in Connecticut. On Dateline New Haven, we're joined by State Senator Doug McCrory, Kim Hawkins of HEDCO, and Howard Cahill, a business leader in our state. Harry Jost, our station manager, informs me we have questions from listeners. Harry, what are on people's minds?
Miguel Pittman from Sandra's Next Generation Restaurant says the $20,000 grant is only for businesses that have 20 or less employees. I have 24 employees and 10 part-timers, so I don't qualify for the loan. Can that loan agreement be modified?
You want to take that, Kim?
At this point, I would say no. That's something that I would have to go back to have conversation with, but I would say at this point, it would not be modified.
Okay, thanks for that question, Miguel, because I guess Miguel maybe can get some help with some of the other loans that are available. That's a great business, Sandra's. It's growing in the hill. Harry, are there other questions?
Yeah, Bob McCormick says, how difficult is it for Howard Cahill and his workers dealing with the COVID-19? And are any of Howard's workers in isolation?
Thank you for that question, Bob. Howard?
Sure, and thank him for the question. Thank you for the question. The COVID-19, it's challenging working in the environment and in the space, as you can imagine, The goal of our staff right now is to remain healthy. One of the ways that we are staying healthy is we have really altered our business practices where we sanitize on a daily basis. We, for the most part, have shut our offices down to walk-in visits. We reduce the number of people coming to the building. We're doing a lot of funeral arrangements over the phone. Also, using our computer software system, we're doing funeral arrangements and corresponding with families. We're streaming funeral services over the internet. So things have changed drastically for us and actually for the community at large. Funeral service is not the way it used to be a month ago. And it's sort of difficult explaining that to some families who are not, as serious about the COVID virus. Most families are very open and cooperative with us, but things have changed drastically. We have had several employees who have become ill, but they have since recovered. And I have probably 5 to 7 people working remotely. So we have a skeleton crew in the closet. Skeleton crew in the offices, basically just to cover the phone and to cover deliveries.
Thank you, Howard. And Harry Jose, any more questions before I get back to how we're going to make sure these loans get into the hands they need to get them?
Yeah, Joy Monsanto says, I tried to sanitize my restaurant on Sunday with 5 people and Westville called cops on us. We all had on PPE.
Okay. Thank you for that question, Joy. Any other questions, Harry?
Miguel Pittman says, you don't have to have a loan from an existing bank to qualify for the PPE grant. I received the grant without a loan from a bank.
Oh, that's good news to know. Okay, so now going forward with this $20,000, up to $20,000 line of credit that HEDCO is getting to people. Howard Cahill, I know you were involved in trying to get people to actually apply. What efforts did you make at Doug McCrory and Kim to spread the word? And was it difficult getting Black and Latino owned businesses as opposed to businesses owned by, let's say, women who aren't Black and Latino to apply for this money?
Sure. Thank you very much for that question, Paul. I'm going to answer a portion of it. I think perhaps Senator McCrory may want to answer a portion of it, but then also maybe Kim would like to speak to some of the statistics that she's seeing as we get the loan off the ground. For us, we've been doing. I've been doing work in my network, my social media, and my my email list, and through the organizations that I deal with, to get the word out about the loan program. We've been also hosting collaboratively with Senator McCrory and Deputy Commissioner Glendolyn Thames. We've been doing some webinars as well, Zoom conferences as well. And I didn't know if Senator McCrory wanted to pick up on this.
Yeah. So I'll add the fact that we have been doing a media marketing campaign recently, advertising on local newspapers and radios. But the reality is, so many minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses have not been successful at allocating or receiving resources from the state of Connecticut. So they were kind of suspicious of the fact that, oh yeah, right, this is another opportunity, quote unquote, to help us. So we know that. So that's why we have to do a major media outlet and let them know that, yes, this opportunity is real, and is really specifically designed for you. Because I know historically, as a legislator, that so many contractors have been applied for opportunities and they haven't been successful. So they're suspicious. So I get it. That's why we're targeting this program specifically for small business owners, and specifically small business owners in underserved communities. And we're being more and more successful. I think that Kim can speak to the numbers, how they've been increasing over the last few days. So I would just say that.
I agree with both gentlemen. And it has been a situation where we've done a lot of outreach via Zoom, via some of the other media outlets that has allowed individuals to understand that this is available to them. But one of the things that is really key is word of mouth. We operate a lot by word of mouth. And once you show someone or someone is told and they feel confident in who the source is that's bringing them the message that this is very viable, this is something that they can tap into, it becomes more and more of a situation where then people or the businesses will take an interest in what's happening. And so because of that, because of the efforts that Senator McCrory has made, the efforts that Howard has made, and some others in promoting this, it has been a situation where our community has now taken hold of it. And we are seeing, oh, wow, we've seen an increase in almost 10% over the last couple of days after we've started doing
good.
a lot more of this media blasting where our businesses are taking advantage of this. So we're excited about what we're seeing coming in through the pipeline now.
So I haven't specifically dealt with your program, though I am trying to help one minority-owned business apply. I have heard some stories, not so much about this program, but in general with all these programs, with the portals not working. So you try to apply. I talked to one person who actually said he tried this program and 5 times he got error messages and couldn't get through. I know I went through a different program where so many times the bank's portal and the government's portal malfunctioned. I had to wait hours to get somebody, a human being, to fix it. It turned out, I figured it was my fault because I'm not good at tech. It turned out it wasn't. They said, this is happening nationally in so many ways. It's so broken. Have you encountered problems or fixed any problems with people being able to access the portal to make these applications?
Have not. The applications continue to flow in, and I'm seeing them coming in as we're speaking. I think if there's an issue with someone not being able to access it, they should certainly give us a call. We are here in the office. We are working. There is a COVID hotline that's set up in the office. And so if we don't pick up the phone, they can at least leave that message and then we can return the call. But we've not this is the first glitch that I've heard about. So we've not had any issues that I know of where applicants haven't been able to move through the process.
Right. The majority I've heard about are with banks and with the SBA on the PPP. The other question I heard is I looked over the qualifications. You need to be in good standing with the State Department of Revenue Services. And you obviously need to have quarterly financials available as with the other programs. What does it mean to be in good standing with the Department of Revenue Services?
So we want to be able to make sure that you are as current as you're supposed to be with your taxes. We know that with COVID-19, there have been some delays, but what you are able to do is go to the Department of Revenue's website, type in your number, and it will generate a letter for you. If you're in an industry that does not require you to do that, then what we're asking for those businesses to do is to provide us with a letter that says that your business does not have to pay into the DRS, and we will accept that as proof. And also, what kind of
businesses don't have to file taxes?
We've gotten several indicators where there are some sole proprietors, some electricians, they're different businesses. So we'll research that to find out. I haven't stopped to take an assessment of who those businesses are that are actually saying that, because the majority of us, the letters are coming through. But I've gotten those comments. And so these are the remedies that we're putting out there. If that be the case, send us a letter. If you're in a payment plan with DRS, send us a letter. We still have to do the due diligence on our side, but we want you to still be able to submit your application, and then we will follow up with that as we go along.
Sounds like you're all working really hard on this. I know you have to get going in a couple minutes. Can each of you address next steps, specifically with this program? It's going to close April 30th. With this program and with the broader effort to help the minority community, business community deal with what's just beginning to be a devastating recession and maybe depression from the COVID-19 virus, what are the next steps and what are you specifically planning to do? So, maybe start with Doug.
Yeah, so the next step in this particular program is to evaluate the need. Obviously, Kim said they have over 400 applicants, and I'm sure we have went over our threshold with the amount of money that we have available. My next step is to identify more money, more resources for this particular program so we can get dollars out on the street to our small businesses so they can stay viable and keep functioning. So my next step is to identify another pot of money so we can continue this program for another month and get more opportunities for people who need it.
So you're going to be looking to get more money for the program, Senator McCrory.
Absolutely.
Howard K. Hill, I don't think I've ever met anyone who works harder to try to create these opportunities in urban Black communities in New Haven. What are your next steps, either with this or with the broader challenge?
Sure. Thank you, Paul. So like Senator McCrory, I always have my eyes and ears open to see if there's any way that we can aggregate more resources and get the banks, get the foundations, the community foundations, get the philanthropists, get the family offices, all of those people, the Dalio Foundation, to really focus on a set aside for minority, particularly in my case, Black-owned businesses, so that we can ensure that we keep the Black community stable, excuse me, at least stable enough so that we can get to the next step. But more importantly, Paul, I look at this as a great opportunity for minority-owned businesses really to take a look, to take a hard look at their weaknesses and take this time to really build business infrastructure and capacity. One of the things that we've heard is that this has been sort of a race to money. And if you don't have all of your financials in place where you can actually submit to the banks or submit to Kim, there could be a holdup. And this would, things are coming in so fast, things are moving so fast, it knocks you out of the race rather quickly if you don't have your business in order. So I'm going to continue to fight for the community and aggregate resources and leverage.
Can I follow up on 2 points?
Relationships so that we can drive more resources down into the community. I will say one last thing, Paul. This effort has got to be a collective effort by the community. It cannot be done with just folks like Senator McCrory and Kim and myself and other folks that are out there fighting. There's plenty of people, Robin Porter or Kathy Graves. There's all kinds of people out there that's fighting out here to try to help the community. This has got to be a collective effort.
Can I just drill down on 2 points you just made? It sounds like, and tell me if I'm wrong, the first thing you just said is in-house, just as with the other challenges as the pandemic, one opportunity can be for small businesses of any kind to see what their structural weaknesses were. So they might have lost the first race to the money because their finances were in order. Maybe this will be a prod to get your finances more in order. But also, you talked about a collective effort that's broader. You talked about people like Kathy Graves at the City Small Business Office. You talked about people like Kim and Senator McCrory, but you also talked about the Dalio Foundation. You talked about philanthropists who aren't specifically in the Black community, that we need a collective effort. I think what I'm hearing, but tell me if I'm wrong, is that you think there needs to be a much broader effort to focus by the whole community on making aid available to small businesses in the Black community right now. And if that's what you're saying, how can people do that? Are there specific places that money can be directed to make that happen? Do the channels exist?
Yeah, I would say thank you for lifting that point, Paul. If most people, if they know me, they understand, what I've been doing over the past, we'll say 10 years or so. I would say that there are plenty of organizations out there. There's two in particular that I worked on myself. The Prosperity Foundation and also the Black Business Alliance. Prosperity Foundation deals directly with philanthropy, and then the Black Business Alliance deals with the infrastructure of Black businesses. Things have been rather slow because it's, at the end of the day, being so pro-Black actually becomes a barrier for organizations. At the end of the day, what we're fighting against is not necessarily, I would say, the resources or the availability. It's a mindset on both sides, from the people who have the resources and the people who don't have the resources. So this is the reason why we have to work collectively, because the people who are suffering are experiencing the same thing, but they're sort of doing it in their own little silos. So yes, there are organizations out there, HEDCO being one of them. This is the reason why Senator McCrory has been fighting so hard at the legislative space to drive those resources down into organizations that are run by people that look like the community. That's critically important that happens, that money gets to organizations that are run by people that look like the community that they're trying to serve. Too often there's a disconnect. And when the disconnect happens, the resources never get to the people, and the resources always get diverted into other spaces. But the statistics that are used are to get those monies are always with the people who suffer the most. And in my personal opinion, it's the minority community, meaning the Black and Latino community.
Well, I will echo your point from my observation. How do people find out more about the Prosperity Foundation and the Black Business Alliance?
Sure. Prosperity Foundation, you can go to www.tpfct.org. That's tpfct.org, and Black Business Alliance is bbusinessalliance.org.
All right. And before we let you sum up, Kim, Harry Droz tells me that we have another listener question. Harry, what do they got?
Miguel Pittman asks, what's the total dollar amount that was set aside for this grant? And if that money isn't used, can that money be set aside for future programs that could include employees with 40 or less?
Thank you for the question, Miguel. I think I understood from Doug and Kim that, in fact, there are hundreds of applications that will exceed the amount, but correct me if I'm wrong. And Doug said he's going to try to get more money. What is the dollar figure so far?
The initial dollar figure for this program was $2 million. Clearly, there's a demand and a need for more. So, like you said, in our next steps, my responsibility was to go after it and be intentional. I want to follow up what Howard said. What things we can do as a state? We have to be intentional about what we're trying to accomplish and not have broad stroke ideas that work for the general public. For this particular population, for this community, you have to be intentional about it. So if you know the problem is there, then you have to create programs that will design and support those populations. And this is one of those programs that are intentionally designed to support minority and women-owned businesses in underserved communities.
Thank you. And Kim, to sum up, what are your next steps, both with this project and the broader challenge of getting some of that needed money into the Black community?
Well, our next steps are to go through the process of approving these loans. We're in that process now. We're hoping to get money out on the street to many of these businesses by next week. As we continue to go through this process, one of the things that happens is that once we've identified these businesses and we understand where their needs are, and we can identify some of the shortfalls, i.e. the accounting abilities to present and produce these financial information that we need, we have a broader teaching opportunity where we will provide technical assistance to them once they're in our sphere of businesses. We now will continue to work with them, to monitor them, to check in with them, to make sure that, okay, you've been able to receive these dollars. Here's what the first 3 months look like. Now, please tell us where you are as you go forward, so that we can continue to identify and have a conversation about where they are, where their capacity is, how this coronavirus is still impacting them, if it's still around at that time frame, and how we can be of assistance, providing resources, additional dollars. It's going to take the community to work together, and with Senator McCrory and Howard and other individuals who are out there who are all hearing the same message, we should be able to come together and determine how else we can best provide resources and be of benefit to the population that we're trying to serve.
Great. And we have one last question, Harry. Maybe we can slip it in. Harry, who's this from?
Levi Lewis. He says, although the church is not considered a business, it is very vital. It is a very vital component to assisting the people through this crisis. How do the churches apply for this loan?
Great question.
Unfortunately, this is not a program that churches can apply for.
All right. Hey, wait, thanks everybody for joining us today. I know you're all busy. Kim Hawkins, Senator Doug McCrory, Howard K. Hill, 3 people on the front lines trying to make sure that a good chunk of change coming down the pipe to help people deal with this pandemic goes to minority and women-owned businesses, small businesses, truly small businesses, not Shake Shack businesses in our communities. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to give you 3 reminders of places to go to find out more. You want to go to Headco, HEDCO Inc.com to find out about this specific program, $20,000 lines of credit. And if we want to get that collective net Howard K. Hill's talking about, where the whole community tries to get money to to organizations that look like the people they're trying to help in the Black business community, go to the Prosperity Foundation at pfct.org. tpfct.org, and the Black Business Alliance, bbusinessalliance.org. So thank you again, folks, for joining us today on Dateline New Haven on WNHH-FM. Thanks to everyone who sent questions. They were great questions. Thanks for listening and trying to get more information. And thanks to Harry Droz, our station manager, the miracle man who gets this program on so many platforms. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience, performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free. Group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.